Good morning. Welcome to Collective Church. Whether you're online or in the room with us, we're glad that you're here, that we get to gather together. If we've never met before, my name is Tyler. I'm one of the lead pastors here. And we've been in a series called Seeing Jesus Through the Eyes of John. And next week we're gonna kind of get out of sync a little bit because I don't know if you know it, but it is Easter. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit in John just for a week, and then we'll go back. But next week we have two services at 9 and 11 in person, and then online at 11 a.m. We are excited to gather together to celebrate the greatest act of love that humanity has ever seen. And so we're in this series, Seeing Jesus, and one of the things that we've been doing is, and I mention it each week, is that we put together a journal. And so if you haven't been tracking with us, you can still catch up. Go to the website, collectivechurch.ca, download the journal, and follow along with us. But what the journal does is it moves the conversation from simply Sunday to Sunday, and instead we begin to hear from God or spend time with God or engage with Jesus Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so the journal allows you to carry the conversation, so it's not just listening to me speak, but instead identifying, okay, God, if you want to speak, I want to hear from you, and not just for an hour on a Sunday. And so if you haven't grabbed the journal, if you have, amazing, we're excited to be engaging with you. Today, I want to talk about around the idea of how can you be blind and not know it? How can you be blind and not know it? I'm gonna unpack this section from John 9. But before I do, let me just give you a little bit of context, because I'm gonna hit it at a little bit different angle than if you've grown up in church that maybe you've heard. So I want to set the stage for what I'm going to talk about. There's been a miracle that has happened. This amazing situation where a man that had been blind could now see, and it was all because he met with Jesus. In fact, what Jesus did is he spit in his hand with some dirt, and he put it in the guy's eye, and then the man who couldn't see could now see. Now, there's a part of it that even hearing that, or even if you've been reading it, that you're like, dude, don't you know it's COVID? like mud and spit and hands in my eyes? Like there's a degree that you're like, no. Like imagine you're blind, or let's just say your vision's not great, and someone came at you and said, don't worry, I have the solution. And then they're running at you. You'd be like, get behind me, Satan, right? Be like, get away from me, I don't want you near. And yet, what does Jesus do? He actually uses something that even in that day would have been gross and strange to heal someone. It's the reminder for us that Jesus does not operate in the parameters that we think. That Jesus uses something that everyone else would go, wow, that's gross, man. And he uses it to heal someone. And for the blind man, he doesn't care. Like if you're blind and then you can see and someone puts spit in your eye, you're like, you know what? Do whatever, you spit directly in my eye. It doesn't matter. If it works, it doesn't matter. Jesus shows us that he does not work the way that we think that he does. And if you've been tracking, whether you've been reading the journal or you've been engaging online or in person for the last few weeks, you'll notice a pattern. This is the pattern through especially John, but the New Testament in general, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Jesus does a miracle. He does something significant, and the religious leaders don't like how he did it. So it's usually the timeline. They're like, you did it on the wrong day, Jesus. I'm cool with you healing, but not today. Today is the wrong day. And so again, the religious leaders are upset because Jesus healed this man. And they go hard after this guy. The religious leaders are grilling this man who has just been healed. They are so focused on their own agenda that they can't even see the radical life change that had happened in front of them. So this man who had been healed is getting grilled. And these religious leaders think, okay, Jesus must be a sinner. And he definitely is a sinner because he healed on the Sabbath, the day of rest. And so Jesus says this in response in John 9, verse 31. We know, the man says this in response as they're grilling him. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he is ready to hear those who worship him and do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not from God, he couldn't have done it. So he's explaining to the religious leaders that are grilling, this has never happened before. Like, I was blind and now I see. That's never happened. There's never been someone who was born blind that is healed and can then see again. And he's explaining to the religious leaders that are trying to grill him, like, what other explanation do you have? You think he's a sinner. You think he can't possibly be from God. But how else do you make sense of this? It's never happened before. He has to be from God. He's speaking to the religious leaders out of his experience. And as you might imagine, the religious leaders respond with humility and grace, or not. And they say, you were born a total sinner. Are you trying to teach us? And they threw him out of the synagogue. It's really interesting. So there's this level of arrogance that they have, because they had no context for the idea that just maybe, they could learn from someone else. They're like, it doesn't work like that. We're the teachers. Don't you understand? We teach others. And the guy's going, okay, yeah, great. But how else do you make sense of this? They're like, how dare you, you sinner? They're like, we're totally disregarding what you think. We don't care, because we're the ones that teach. It's incredible arrogance. There is a complete lack of humility. And the truth is that when we get to the place that we can't learn from others, where we qualify and quantify certain things and go, well, it's them that said that. And we don't actually look at it and go, maybe there's truth in that we look more like the Pharisees than we do like Jesus followers. The moment that we disregard someone completely, because there's no way that God could ever speak through that person, we miss it. These Pharisees are so arrogant that it doesn't matter that someone's speaking after interacting with Jesus in a miraculous way. They do not want to hear what he has to say. And so it continues in verse 35. When Jesus heard what had happened, he found the man and he asked, do you believe in the Son of Man? Now, what Jesus is doing is he's getting a spiritual read on the man that he just healed, saying, do you believe in the Son of Man? Now, you have to understand that Jesus is God. So he's asking that question, but he already knows the answer. So why is he asking the question? Well, it's for the benefit of the people that are around, because then they're hearing, but it's also for our benefit thousands of years later, so we understand what Jesus is working through. So he's trying to understand where this man is at spiritually. Do you believe in the Son of Man? If you look at the New Testament, Jesus actually describes himself as the Son of Man many times, often. He often says Son of Man, and that can be lost on us. Because we hear that and go, Son of Man, maybe I'm the Son of Man, he's the Son of Man, and we don't really understand the implications of that phrase. Then when Jesus says it, he's actually calling back to an Old Testament book called Daniel, where they use the phrase Son of Man, and it is an exalted phrase. It's an exalted figure. That there's something significant in that name. And it's an interesting tension. So even if you go back to week 1 of this series, the beginning of John, the understanding that that Jesus is fully God and fully human, you'd see elements of that in this. So Son of Man is an indication of exaltation, this sense that he is divine, but then there's also this earthy sense of humanity, Son of Man. And so even in this, Jesus is quantifying his divinity and his humanity. He is sharing and inviting this man into this moment of going, do you believe in the Son of Man? And the man answered, who is he, sir? I want to believe in him. Who is he? I want to believe. I want to believe. He desires to believe. And there's this moment here, this intersection of this man's desire and his present moment, where he's going, I'm ready. I want to know, is this Jesus? Is this Son of Man? Is he here? I want him. And Jesus says, you've seen him. And he's speaking to you. You know, that thing that you've been looking for your whole life, that thing that you've been searching for, he is right in front of you. He is right here. He is me. I'm standing in front of you. The one who healed you is the one that you're looking for. Now, for us, it can be so easy for us to fill our life with all sorts of things, thinking that that's what we're looking for. We search for fulfillment. We think if I make enough money, then I'll feel like I'm fulfilled and I'll feel like enough. If I find the one, then they will complete me. We've watched too many romantic comedies. But we fall into these patterns of looking for all sorts of things that we think maybe this will fill the hole, the gap in my life. Or from a spiritual perspective, we think if I can just check all the right boxes and press the buttons in the right order, then Jesus, the genie, will answer my 3 wishes. We go like, then that will provide some sense of fulfillment. And yet what we see in this story is completely different. There's this ordinary moment. Like there's not fanfare, there's not trumpets, there's not like this, like the beautiful keys behind setting the environment. There's just a man standing before Jesus who says, do you believe in the Son of Man? He goes, I want to believe. Like this thing that I've been looking for my whole life. And Jesus is saying, I'm right in front of you. And for us, it's a reminder that Jesus wants to meet us in the deeply ordinary. And we struggle with that. Because we go, I want you to show up when everything is wonderful and amazing and perfect. And Jesus goes, that isn't how I work. Don't you remember? I'm the one that spit in the mud or in the dirt to make mud to heal this guy's eyes. I don't work like you think. But we have all these things in our life that we go, if I can just do all of this. And Jesus is in front of us saying, I'm right here. So the man is saying, yes, Lord, I believe. I believe in the Son of Man. I believe in you. And he worshiped Jesus. So I want you to notice what happened. He experiences Jesus. He is healed by Jesus. But he doesn't even fully know who Jesus is. It's interesting because he actually meets Jesus face to face but doesn't fully see him clearly. That there's a little bit of a process. And the same is true for us, that there are times that we see in part. And so he experiences Jesus partially. But when he sees Jesus, now there's a physical sense for him. He's blind no longer, so he sees Jesus. But when we see Jesus, when he sees Jesus, everything changes. At Collective, we exist to make it all about people seeing Jesus. See, sometimes we settle for knowing about Jesus, or like the secondhand thing, or I've heard about Jesus, but we want you to see Jesus with your own eyes. We want you to experience Jesus. How do you do that? What does that look like? I mean, the ultimate thing is we see him through the words of Scripture, through the Bible. We see Jesus, but it also happens in community. It's why co-groups are so important, because we spend time with other people and we see Jesus at work in them or through them or around us, or we start to notice things together. We see Jesus during worship when we have moments that we take our eyes off of us and we fix our eyes on him. We see Jesus in so many different environments, but we need to see Jesus, not just hear about him, not just learn about him, but experience him individually and communally. And what happens? This man sees Jesus and he surrenders. It says that he worships Jesus, that his response is worship. But in the original language, it actually says that he prostrated himself before Jesus. Now, even when I was prepping for that, I was nervous because I'm like, prostrating is not a word you hear very often. And I was like, it could be one of those things like where I accidentally say prostate, which, let me just be clear, those are different things. He prostrated himself. Like, here's my challenge this week. Use it in a sentence. Okay, you know what it is? I looked up the definition because I think it's helpful. Lay oneself flat on the ground face downward, especially in reverence or submission. So this man humbles himself in response, in the presence of Jesus. It's a reminder that our posture matters. This is why, if you've ever noticed during any time of worship, if you're in the room or maybe you've seen videos, you'll see sometimes people with their hands up or hands out, or there's a variety of different things you do because posture matters. What's the sign of surrender? The sign of surrender is hands up. What do you do if you're receiving a gift? You put your hands out. That there's something significant in our posture. I had moments growing up. I grew up in this Baptist church where not many people responded. So we'd sing songs and people would honestly look less than enthusiastic to be there. And it'd be like songs of like celebration, like this is amazing. And they're like, this is great. Except for this one lady who had drawn on eyebrows that were always surprised. And she was enjoying herself. But I grew up where I was like, I felt weird responding physically in posture. And I was like, well, what if everyone watches me? What if everyone sees me and is like, what is that guy doing? What a weirdo. Until I experienced Jesus in a way that I had never experienced Jesus, and I saw him clearly. And I remember that I'd sit in a worship service, and I was like, you go in stages where I'm like, I had my hands out, and that was like a big deal for me. And then I got to the point where I'm like hands fully extended as far as I can. Like, I don't care. My butt crack could be hanging out. I don't care. Why? Because when we see Jesus, when we actually see him and understand what he's done for us, when we come face to face in his presence, we can't help but respond. Like, this man wasn't faking anything. He didn't get on the ground because he's like, I think I should probably, I don't know, get on the ground and prostrate myself. He was so moved by what Jesus had done for him that he couldn't help it. And it's helpful for us to use that as a diagnostic. We don't worship and we don't use our posture to prove anything. Like, look at me, see how, oh yeah, maybe they get a little sway on. Like, none of that. We do it because we go, God, I'm so unbelievably thankful and grateful. Jesus, I see who you are, and I can't help but worship. It's also why we have worship after the sermon. Because part of what I want to do is I want to help you to see Jesus and then step aside so that we can actually meet with him. That there are these moments that are holy after we hear from the Bible where we go, okay, God, I want to meet with you. And that's not just for you, that's for me. Like, even through all the preparation, all the study, all the stuff that God is meeting me and changing me and confronting stuff in me and pushing on stuff that I'm like, oh, not that. And so when we worship together, I'm right there with you. We're all going, I can't believe how good you are. Like, the song that we're doing after is so powerful for me and a reminder for us of what we're supposed to do. And that's not something that as leaders that we're like, well, you really need this. That's something that every single day, every single moment, I'm aware. And I get low with Jesus and go, I'm so in awe of what you've done and I need you. Verse 39 continues, and Jesus is talking to this man, and he says to him, I entered this world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and to show those who think that they see that they are blind. Now, I don't know if you picked it up, but he's not just talking about physical blindness. He's talking about spiritual blindness, the inability to see God at work, the inability to see what God sees or to see things beyond your own lens, your own filter. You know that Jesus actually came to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable? That Jesus came to afflict those that are comfortable and to comfort those that are deeply afflicted, to identify where there are people that are blind and to bring sight, and also to identify the people that think they can see and tell them that they're blind. That Jesus does, he does this significant work of comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. If you were to look at Jesus, his whole life, do you know who he's often the most upset with? religious people. He's often most upset with the people that are like, I'm great, I'm good, I've got it all figured out, but you, peasant, you have a lot to do. And you know what he gets really upset about? People that go, and I'm going to make it really difficult for you. You got to do this, you got to do that. Like when the early church is like, we don't care if you're Jewish or not, we also want you to get circumcised. It's like, that's called putting another barrier for people. Like, hey, you can be part of the church, but we got to talk about something. Jesus looks at that and goes, that was not what I came for. He's upset with religious leaders that are trying so hard to pretend we've got it all figured out. We are so perfect. And he's looking at these people that are so desperately in need of Jesus. Did I make that go off? Yeah. Jesus is there to love people who are desperate and ordinary and in need of him. You ever feel like you're just not good enough? You ever feel like a failure? You ever look at your life and your past history of mistakes and sit there and think, I don't know if I deserve any of this? You ever feel like that? He gave his life for you. He gave his life to show comfort to you when you were afflicted. If you're desperate for new life, he's here. If you're desperate for hope, he's here. He is present. He is near. He's come for you. If you ever find yourself at the end of yourself, perfect, like when you realize, okay, I've got nothing left, I need something else, I need you, Jesus, he goes, perfect. I can work with that. In this story, we see a blind man who has been desperate. He's been blind since he was born, and now he sees. I've had moments in my life where I see clearly for the first time in a long time, and it's a powerful experience. The one we were living in Calgary, and I was in my late 20s, and I went to the optometrist. And I was really conditioned. You go to the optometrist, and I'm like, I have great vision, so I can see. And so they put like the lines on the wall, and they're like, okay, go ahead and read those. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm reading them, and they go, stop squinting. I'm like, I'm not squinting, I'm just reading. She's like, you're squinting. And I go, okay. And she's like, stop. So then I'm trying to read it with my eyes without squinting. And what did I learn? I can't see that well. And so I'm reading going like, I thought I was really good. And she's like, you are definitely, no, you got, like I'm like 28. I'd never worn glasses. And she's like, you have astigmatism and you can't see far away. Nearsighted? I don't know, whatever. And so I'm there and I get glasses. And I go with Lee. We're living in Calgary, so we're near the mountains, right? You're looking out and the mountains are on the horizon. And I'm driving with Lee and I'm like, Lee! Look at the mountains! Wow! And she's like, yeah, that's what they look like. That's what they look like. And I was like, I know, but I didn't realize. I didn't realize I couldn't see. And she's like, just shut up. Like, okay. Like, great. Go, you enjoy it and whatever. And it's also funny, too, because, like, I had people talk to me, and they're like, sometimes you look kind of rude because you're squinting at me, and you look like you're angry. And no one thought, like, maybe he can't see. Maybe we should say to him, hey, Tyler, can you see me? And you're like, yeah, when I look like this, I can see you perfectly. What did I need in that? I didn't realize that I was blind, or I didn't realize that I couldn't see properly. What did I need? I needed someone outside of myself to tell me that I wasn't seeing clearly anymore. I needed someone outside of myself to identify, hey, there's something here that you're not seeing clearly. Hey, you thought that you were seeing well, but it deteriorated over time. It's why co-groups are important, because we have people around us that we invite to point out areas where things have got blurry, where things have got fuzzy. Now, notice that I say we invite them, because sometimes we get it wrong, not just in the church, in the world, where people love to tell you what they think, but we've never invited it. Can I just as an aside, like, not a good way to live? Like, if you're always going around telling people your advice and they've never asked you for it, maybe don't. Like, there's a difference, right? When I'm like, hey, what do you think? I'm actually asking. But someone that just offers it all the time. Co-groups are important because we get to invite people to point out some areas in our life that you go, I don't know if you're seeing this entirely clearly. It's incredibly important for us to have actual people around us that we can do life with that can point those things out. But the ultimate way for us to clarify our vision, for us to actually identify if maybe we have gone blind or we're like spiritually we have astigmatism and we're not seeing clearly, is through the Bible. It's why we're doing the journal like we're doing it this series, because we want you to actually read through it. And I believe wholeheartedly that when you do, that Jesus will use it and he'll show you some areas where you go, hey, I'm going to poke and prod a little here. And you're like, oh, can I skip to the next verse? He goes, no. Because it's identifying some areas in us where there's some blindness or maybe some blurriness, some inability to see. I want you to understand that Jesus wants to restore your sight. Now, that may be physical. Like, maybe Jesus actually wants to restore your sight. I believe that miracles can happen. But I mean from a spiritual perspective, Jesus isn't looking at your spiritual blindness, and all of us have areas of it, and going like, well, I did it in the book, you should just, keep going, move on. He's actually looking at you saying, I want to change you. I want to confront some things. I want to bring clarity. I want to bring spiritual glasses or healing to you. I want to restore your sight. So he's talking to this man and he's saying, I entered this world to render judgment, to give sight to the blind and to show those who think that they see that they are blind. Jesus is right in the middle of this teaching moment. He's face to face with this blind man. He's talking, but there are ears listening. Some Pharisees who were standing nearby heard him and asked, are you saying we're blind? Emphasis mine. Are you saying that's for us? Are you talking about us? I think it's hilarious because Jesus is talking to this blind man, and the whole time the Pharisees are so in their own little world that they're like, wait, he's talking about us. He means us. And Jesus responds to them, if you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty. But you remain guilty because you claim you can see. Jesus shows them that they can't see. This is like a mic drop moment for Jesus with the Pharisees. What they're doing is they're demonstrating the sin of self-sufficiency. They're like, I don't need you. No, I'm good. I'm good. I can see perfectly. I don't need you. I'm fine. I mean, even you see it a little bit with the man initially where they're like, I don't want to learn, so I'm not teachable. No, I'm good. I've got it figured out. I'm good. And when you think of them, I want you to imagine looking at people that are like this. I didn't realize it would do that with the microphone. I'll do it. Right? Imagine like someone walking like this, right? And you're looking at it going, hey man, can you see? And you're like, kind of. But the Pharisees are like, no, I can see perfectly. No, it's great. No, it's cool. It's like a small little sliver, but it's fine. I can see perfectly. I'll get close to the, like, no, it's great. No, I can see perfectly. They can't see, and yet they cannot see how blind they actually are. Now think about how absurd all of that is. Like seriously, if you saw someone walking around or driving a car with their hands over their eyes, you wouldn't be like, oh, this is great. No, they're fine. They can see perfectly. You'd be concerned. And yet that's so often what happens. Is functionally, we're walking around doing like one of these with one eye squinted. And other people see it and they're like, hey, you look angry all the time. Can you see? No, I'm fine. I'm great. I don't need your help. I'm good. I'm like, it's like 6% vision. I'm great. I'm fine. I'm wonderful. And Jesus comes and he's confronting that in the spiritual leaders. He's confronting this self-sufficiency and this pride. See, Jesus comes and he says, I came to show people that are blind that they can see, and those that think they can see that there's actually blindness. I'm going to confront the areas where they're walking around like this. You look at the Pharisees, these religious leaders, and think, like, how can you be so stupid? Like, how can you live like this where you're walking around and you can't see and everyone else is looking at you going, it's very clear to me. There was a commentary that I read that I think is so helpful for us. And it said this powerfully in it, and it reframes some of this. It says, the Pharisees are not an extinct breed. See, it's easy for us to like, the Pharisees, but you go, not an extinct breed. Whenever we find ourselves valuing the letter of God's law above its spirit, whenever we find ourselves unable to rejoice in the saving and renewing of lives simply because the instrument used was not someone who dots all the I's and crosses all the T's of our theological group. Whenever we lose the daily, hourly sense of joy in the grace of God by which alone we know Him and live before Him, then we need to beware. Lord, is it I? The only security against Phariseeism is grace, which is perhaps the reason the Lord may from time to time permit us to stumble in our Christian walk so that we may have opportunity to rediscover it. Luther observes this. He says, there's no cure for spiritual pride like a little overeating, oversleeping, or overdrinking is to the point. Spiritual Pharisaism may be similarly cured. Here's the thing, you hear that quote? When you realize that you're not nearly as perfect as you'd like to think, then you see clearly. When you understand the unfathomable depths of Jesus' love for you and your complete inability to earn it or deserve it, then you see clearly. When you experience the love that He lavishes on you undeservedly, you see clearly. When you stumble and make mistakes and repent, which is just turning the other way, turning back to Him, then you see clearly. And when you turn to Him and He wraps His loving arms around you, you see clearly. This is not just a go-to green light to live this yo-yo life where you stumble and walk and you're like, am I following Jesus this week? Who knows? I'm not speaking to our prone to wander friends, the people that go like, this is a struggle. I'm speaking to the prone to have no joy friends that are like, I'm doing everything I need to do. There's nothing about it that's life-giving, but Jesus is Lord. And then you see other people and their lives are changed and you're looking going, not them. I don't like that. I don't like them. I don't like that Jesus is doing that. It'd be the same people that are going like, I can't believe He used mud and He used spit. I can't believe He healed this man who was blind. I can't believe He did it in a way that I don't like on a day that I'm not comfortable with. This is what it means to be a Pharisee. And when our morality is the focus of our whole life and it diminishes the gift of grace in our life and in others, we have blindness and we've missed it. See, the truth is that we're all in process. All of us are progressing. All of us are in need of Jesus. The people that I love spending time with that are older are the ones that are more aware of their stuff. Because as they walk more with Jesus, He confronts more stuff in them, and then they become more aware of their need for Him. We settle for surface level Jesus. Hey, Jesus, if you could just make me look like a Christian, great. If I could just get everyone that's around me to go like, you look pretty good, that'd be good. That's not Jesus. Jesus wants deep. He wants root. He wants to actually confront some things that are causing your blindness. He wants to get down deep. But He does require you to surrender to that, where you actually say, I'm willing to let you comfort or afflict where I'm comfortable and comfort where I'm afflicted. We approach Jesus with humility and gratitude. That needs to be our posture as Christians. How can you be blind and not know it? It's all too easy for us to get into this place where we're We got eyes covered and things in front of us, and we're like, no, I'm good. I can see perfectly. And Jesus is looking at us going, yeah, you represent the blindness that I'm talking about. Jesus came to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Which one are you? Do you find yourself in this position of comfort where you're like, you know what? I'm supposed to be, like the running joke with prosperity gospel, I'm supposed to be healthy, wealthy, and white. Like that's Christianity. And you go, no, it isn't. Like, what do you do with the fact that Jesus was Jewish, like he was brown, and all his disciples gave their life for him? And you're like, well, but as a Christian, it's supposed to all be wonderful and good and comfortable, and I don't like doing some of the stuff that he asks me to do. And you go, yeah, perfect. And you know why he has credibility to ask us to do things that we don't want to do? Because he gave his life for us on the cross. Right? And it wasn't just that he went and he died and it was like a moment. He was beaten almost to death. The Roman people had figured out, okay, 40 lashes can kill someone, so we'll do 39. How messed up is that? And so Jesus endures all of this stuff so that we understand that, one, he gets it, but also he has credibility to call us into something different. Because he's looking at us and saying, the way you live and the things you settle for are not going to fulfill you. The things that you think, like, I want to just be comfortable. And Jesus is going, who told you that? Who told you that that's the goal? He comes to afflict the comfortable. But for some of us that feel so afflicted, and we feel like we don't deserve anything, and we have all these people telling us that we're this and that, he comes to comfort us. When we're blind, when we can't see, and we're all too aware of it, he comes to comfort us. When we come to him and we say, I want to believe. Like, I want to know you. And he comforts us. And the truth is, for many of us, we have elements of both in us. We have places where we go, I'll let you confront, but not that. And then when you have other areas that go, your grace is good, but not that good. Like, you see me in the secret. You can't possibly love me. And Jesus is looking at you and he's saying, I gave my life for you. The moments that you think, like, I don't deserve it, are the moments that you're reminded that he gave this gift of grace to you when you didn't deserve it. And the moments that you think that your morality somehow, if you just do more and try more, that you can somehow earn it, you've missed it, and Jesus will all too frequently remind you. Maybe today you'd say, I'm blind and I know it, and I need to see. I just need to see for the first time. I need to see Jesus. Maybe today is the day that you say, I want to give my life to him. I want to surrender. Maybe it's the first time, or maybe it's the first time in a long time that you say, I need you. I need you to meet with me. I need to be with you. I need you to comfort me where I feel afflicted. Maybe you need to make the decision today to follow Jesus. If you're in the room, we'd love to connect with you. Let us know if that's the decision that you want to make. You can fill out a connect card at collectivechurch.ca/connect. You can come talk to us after. If you're online, you'll actually see a button that pops up and says, I want to give my life to Jesus. If you're blind, this is the invitation for us that we can see, that we can be restored into relationship with God, the relationship that we're desperate for. The truth is that Jesus gave everything for you. See, we're all searching for something from Jesus. We're all searching for something to fulfill us. We just don't realize that it's Jesus. We're searching for the restoration of our relationship with God. And we're looking for something that only God can fulfill. And so we try harder when we do more, and we think, okay, if I can just try a little bit more and do a little bit more, then maybe I'll be worthy. But God looked at us and said, you'll never be enough and do enough to bridge the gap, so I'm going to send my son and remind you that it's not about you anymore. And he lived a perfect life, a kind of life that we could never live. And he died on that cross to pay the price for our sin, our brokenness, our rebellion, our self-sufficiency. We're like, I've got this. And he said, I'll take it from here. And he gave his life, and then 3 days later he rose again, and he conquered death and the grip that death had on us. And so the invitation is, do you want to see? Do you want life, the life that only Jesus can offer? For those of us that are Christians, we need to always be reminding ourselves that this is what we believe, and this is what Jesus offers, and it puts us into perspective, and it humbles us and reminds us to be surrendered. Maybe you're in the room and you go, you know what? Even as he's talking about it, I'm pretty sure I'm the one where my vision is fuzzy and cloudy. And like I notice some things, like even God's drawing them to my attention, that there's some areas where I feel like I'm not seeing clearly anymore. If that's you, can I invite you to do something called repenting? Now we hear that, like you have people like on the streets, like repent, and you're like, wow, that sounds really aggressive. But like I mentioned, repenting is you're going in one direction and it's just turning the other way. And what you're doing is you're not just turning aimlessly and going, you're turning back to Jesus, who's the one who restores our sight, and you're saying, I need you again. I need you. Spend some time and say, I need you. I'm not seeing clearly. Help me to see areas where I've allowed myself to get blind. I want to give you an invitation to also worship like the man who had been blind, but now he saw. We get to stand in awe of Jesus and all that he's done. We're going to be singing a song called Build My Life that is all about building our life on Jesus, and it is a powerful declaration for us to remind ourselves that this is what we are all about. We are all about Jesus, and we need him, and we need everything to be built on him. Everything else, you could throw it all away because it won't actually fulfill. So I want to invite you wherever you are to respond to God as he leads you. Would you stand up right now? I want to pray for us. God, even as we reflect on spiritual blindness or places in our life where it's so easy for us to lose sight of what you see, or to see or think that we can see when actually we're blind. God, I pray that you would afflict us where we're comfortable, and that you would comfort us where we're afflicted. Jesus, I'm so grateful that you met the needs of this man, and through that confronted the sin in the Pharisees. Help us not to be like them. God, help us to respond in worship. God, meet us where we are, but don't leave us there. Change us. Move us. God, we build our life on you. God, we are so grateful for you. Thank you, Jesus, for all that you've done. We love you. In Jesus' name.